everybody, Andrew Maher here. Welcome to The Blueprint, proudly brought to you by our good friends at Hyundai. Joining me, as always, is former champion skipper Mark Maclure. Special guest this week as well, lucky enough to have the 1987 Norm Smith medalist David Rhys-Jones on the panel with us. G'day, Sellers.
How you going,
and g'day, Rhys. Lovely to have you two great gentlemen with us.
Good to be here. Thanks, Andy.
It's good to have the great man alongside, isn't it?
Star, David.
Now,
don't worry about that.
You're going to help us talk...
On and off the field.
On and off the... Yeah, there's some legendary stories about all of that. There's no questions about any of that. Rhys, you're going to help us talk about where we're at and where we're hoping to be at as a footy team through the last 3 or 4 weeks and where we're going forward. But most importantly, you're here to tell us about what is coming up. Another fantastic Spirit of Carlton lunch with the Carlton captains.
Yep.
Quickly, what's it all about?
Oh, look, basically we've had a group of past players for the last probably 7 years now, and we've run events and helped out with the football department. We help out in the welfare of former players and try and help where we can around the place. And this is going to be a great fundraiser. We've had some of the best leaders in the history of the game. You know, when you think of Big Nick Jezza and bloke on my left as well, great captain of the club as well. So
doesn't mind going to lunch either.
No, exactly.
Some of those blokes that you've talked about.
I've only got 2 days to get home. That's the problem.
It on Thursday, the 8th of August, is the luncheon. It's at the Grand Hyatt. If you're at all interested in going along, give membership services a call 1300 227 586 or go to the website www.spiritofcarlton.com.au. If you've never been to a Spirit of Carlton lunch before, it's a great lunch to get along to. The stories get bigger and bigger as every year goes by. There is a lot to look forward to down the track. There's a big game to look forward to tomorrow night. In terms of where our season is and where it's likely to be, we'll talk about it a bit more in depth later in the show, but it's a real shaper when it comes to where this season's going to go.
Do or die, I would think.
It
is do or die, and you win this one, they can make the 8, and if they lose this one, you've got to rely on someone else, and that's not where you want to be as a football club. I think sometime during the year they've improved in some areas, and we'll go through some of those stats soon, but there's some areas that they haven't improved in, and we'll point those out as well. And they need to be very good tomorrow night to beat the Pies.
Well, it's a big question. In fact, it's one of the big questions being asked by people about Carlton and Carlton supporters. Are we any better this year than we have been in previous years? And you talk about the statistics. Yeah,
contested possessions, they've gone from 6th to 2nd previous year to this year, and that's a really telling point about how you get the ball and win the ball when you haven't got it. Your clearance difference is another one. That's a very important part to actually score goals and push it inside 50. Long kicks, they've changed their style of play to a long kicking style of play instead of short chip passes around, and that creates more contested marking, where they're second again. From 14th to 2nd, our contested marking lifts up. You know, average losing margins from 31 to 12, which is a very good stat. But the worst part is we're inside 50s. We've gone from 9 to 4th in the inside 50s, but our forward line has let us down. We continue not to kick a score. Our talls aren't marking the ball. Our smalls, really, we've got really good smalls in Garlett and Betts and Yarran, and they're not kicking the goals that we require. Our midfield's not kicking enough score as well. We're not pushing in that area as well. So there's some areas where we need some improvement, and they're the areas, but there's some areas there where we have improved greatly.
Rhys, do you feel like we're a better side this year? Does it strike you?
Look, we've been competitive in every game we've played this year, and people have got to take that into account. We haven't got the 4 points on a number of occasions, but we've had the opportunity in every game we've played this year to actually win that game. So, and that's, while that can be a disappointing thing, it's been a lot better than it has been in the past.
I think the Hawthorn game was a classic example. We absolutely dominated the game, and then 15 minutes. A really quick burst by Hawthorn, a really good side, as we know they are. 15 minutes blew us away, and we just couldn't go on with it from there on. So it was a real problem for us.
Helson, you got Roughhead and Franklin and a third banana like Jack Gunston. It makes a massive difference to the output of side. I wonder where you guys think Andrew Walker sits in the scheme of things. He's had such a great year. He's been pushed down back. We know that, and he's been brilliant. But we saw after half-time, he didn't necessarily hit the board against Sydney, but he changed the dynamic of the forward line last week. Is it something that maybe Mick should keep up his sleeve a bit more often?
Oh, look, he's a very, very good player, and when allowed to run and create, and he can run and jump, he can catch the ball, there's not much you can't do. I mean, you've got to remember back, he was a number 2 draft pick. So you expect that thing from guys who are taken that high in the draft, and he's finally showing us what he's good at.
He doubted himself for a long time, though, David. He was not
Agreed.
sure, rest assured, but now he is incredibly sure of himself, and you watch him become one of the stars of the competition. And he's on all-Australian form, this kid, and half-back flank, and I hope he gets there.
You talk about confidence, and I don't know about Jeff Garlett, but he just feels like a player who's just gone off the boil a bit in the last couple of weeks. I mean, his season up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago was stellar. I mean, he was setting new numbers for himself and new standards for himself, and he looked like he'd taken a significant leap. It's a great opportunity for him again on Friday night, MCG, wide open spaces, a side that'll give him a bit of a look at it. And they do give you a chance, the Collingwood back line. Yeah, it's a chance for him to really kick-start his season again, isn't it? On Friday?
I wanted to play the whole three of them up forward.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Wouldn't it be great to see that, the whole three of them there and tear them apart?
We need the big blokes contesting, though. That's going to be the other side of it.
Casbolt Waite can do that, though, can't they?
They've got to get to contest.
Yeah. You can't rely on Waite.
No, but Casbolt gets to enough content. I mean, if he's coached and he's shown the way, and people teach him how to.
I think he's got to realise that that's his job. He just needs to compete every contest. A bit like this bloke did, every time. Just do the hard work. And you talk about the mosquito fleet of the 80s. They needed someone providing the contest. Working hard up and down the ground.
At the other end of the ground, people say, and we were having, before we came on today, we're having a chat about Lachlan Henderson. Maybe he might be a player we can throw forward. But so good has he been across centre-half back, and again last week he was outstanding. Remember, I think at the start of this year, Salisbury said the more footy Jamison and Henderson can play alongside one another, the better it's going to be for Carl.
This week they've got one tall to look after. They've also got Lynch to look after, who's been, I think, disappointing, and he leads up the ground, doesn't really hurt you. So maybe there's a chance that you can use one of these tools up forward, whether it be Walker or whether it be Henderson. But his confidence now has risen to an extent where he can do things like he just did then. Take marks from behind and actually contest the ball. He leaves his man well. He's become a really good player. I'd say he'd been the top 2 or 3 in our best and fairest this year.
He's started to back himself, hasn't he?
Oh, exactly. And he has been thrown forward on a couple of occasions and kicked goals. He's gone forward and kicked goals, so he can do it.
You've been seeing a lot of VFL footy this year, and a lot of Carlton supporters want to know, where Nick Duigan and Jeremy Laidler are at. You've seen a lot of them. Where are they at?
Oh, look, Jeremy Laidler's been playing forward on quite a number of occasions, so which is probably foreign to him, and he's got to learn something different. But I think that's an instruction from the coach. Go forward. That's going to be where you're going to have to fit into the Carlton senior team. Nick Duigan, look, I love the way he goes about it, but he's a little bit on that slow side. I think both of them probably lack a bit of pace, and AFL football these days is built for speed.
Actually, last year they played Duigan up forward. Remember they played
the Collingwood game
on Maxwell, and he destroyed him. Kicked 3 or 4 goals, made him accountable. Had 6 forwards. Do not let them have one loose down back, because that's what they don't like. And they had some pace that night. No real tools. Only one tall was Walker in the forward line. I think Henderson was injured, got hit early, and went off the ground. Blessing in disguise almost when you think about it, because the pace killed them and they actually won the game when they weren't expected to. So things can be done.
In terms of down back, we should just quickly mention that Cade Simpson, after a less than 100% start to the season, I reckon, has really found his feet now. Don't you reckon he's just settled into that role really well? And his last 5 or 6 weeks have been, up to that standard that we've come to expect from Cade Simpson over all these years?
Yeah, look, I think players such as Cade, he's just a goer, and once he tries to do other things and tries to do a bit too much, he can get away from what he's really good at, and that's just being a real goer. And that's
isn't he?
He's just got to go and go and go 100% all the time.
Sellers, last week, Port Adelaide just overwhelmed Collingwood through the middle of the ground, in between the 50-metre arcs. They were just too good for them and too big and too strong. Now, Brock McLean has been having a really good season for Carlton, and there are some big-bodied Carlton boys who we can throw through there, and I'm sure our midfield's going to be bolstered. Team selection, you're probably going to know by now. There's likely to have been a couple of inclusions that'll add to our midfield depth.
This kid's a great story.
It's a great story.
He's a sensational story. He came across injured from Melbourne. Everyone thought he couldn't play at all because he played injured. And all of a sudden he went back and he was destroyed. And that's what Duigan and who's the guy from Geelong again? Laidler. They got to fight back like this kid. They've got to find a yard and do that, because he has been sensational. What a great story he is.
But this is the area of the ground, isn't it, where we've got...
Look, I picked him to win the Liston medal last year because, obviously doing the VFL stuff, but because I didn't think he was going to be given a chance to play senior footy, and thank God he did get the chance, because he can play.
And you talk about great stories. Dennis Armfield continues to be one of those. It's been 3 weeks since we've been here to chat about the season, and he just continues to operate at a really impressive standard.
Look at the pace.
That's fantastic.
Great pace. And David, you can't beat it. Pace is sensational. You don't have to be the greatest.
That's working for your team, mate.
You don't have to be the greatest skilled player,
infectious.
David. You don't have to be. And no one actually is. We haven't met the perfect one yet. We all thought Juddy was, but sometimes he doesn't do other things as well. So he plays to his strengths, and he's a terrific kid. And I'm certain he's an easy coach too.
Well, he keeps getting better year in, year out. He finds another couple of percentage points of output. He just improves. And
sheer confidence there.
You've got to develop your list, don't you? That's the only way you get better in the AFL. You can fluke one or two in the draft, or you might be able to, recruit one or two in, but you've got to make the most of what you've got at your disposal. And if they all improved at the rate that Armfield has gradually, sort of annually, we'd be...
Well, he knows his capabilities, he knows what he's good at, and he doesn't get ahead of himself.
It's actually interesting to talk about improvement. I mean, we've seen the improvement of some of the statistics here. We just need some improvement in some areas. I think Mick's picked his side, how he likes to structure up a side, and what he's found is we've got some deficiencies now in areas where he needs. You either fix it up at the end of the year or draft some young kids to do so, or buy in someone else, or whatever you've got to do. But we now know exactly what we need and what's available for us to get.
Before we talk about Friday night, quickly to wrap things up, VFL-wise, in terms of young players coming through, Andy McGuinness has played 4 games back, I think, and Nick Graham's played 3, both off knees. How have you assessed them in the VFL?
Both going really well. Nick Graham, I obviously haven't seen much of him. He only had 3 games in, and we've watched 2 of them, and he's a ball magnet. He just gets the right positions all the time. Andy McGuinness is going to fill a hole back, and that might be able to release Henderson forward. And, he's going to be a bonus for us later on the year. Friday
night it is the Richard Pratt Cup, of course, raising awareness of prostate cancer. There's going to be 32 seconds of applause at the start of the game because 32 times a day a man is diagnosed with prostate cancer. So it's a fight that's obviously worth waging. What happens in this game of footy?
Have you been tested?
I haven't yet, no.
Well, you should go.
You two have, haven't you?
Yeah.
Enjoy life.
What are we expecting out of this game tomorrow night, lads?
Look, it's a must-win game, and it's as simple as that. And we can't be competitive like we have been over the. We need to win, and it really, as Salah said, we need our forward line functioning really well, and we need to get some score on the board because that's what's really letting us down.
Interesting. See if they've got the character still there, the character to actually push and kill yourself and win a game against the arch enemy. So
feels like that's there though, don't you reckon? I mean,
it is.
That second half fight back against Sydney last week was full of character. In the end, the 22 points was probably a flattering margin for the Swans, I reckon.
What about the killer instinct though? I don't see the killer instinct to win a game. You've got to do something extra to do that extra thing to do. So we'll see what happens tomorrow night. I suspect that they'll win. I think they're better than Collingwood at this stage. I think they're better performed than Collingwood, but can they beat them? Have they got the guts to do so?
That's the big question. Don't forget Spirit of Carlton. The lunch is on Thursday, the 8th of August, $188 a head. If you're keen to get a group of mates along, it'll be a fantastic lunch for you to get along to. spiritofcarlton.com.au is the place to go to. You can find all the details you need to get your tickets. Reece, good to have you on the show. Good luck with the lunch, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks,
fellas. Good to have you again. That's all we've got time for on today's show. We'll be back next week. You can catch us on Thursday, the 11th of July. Until then, have a great weekend. Go Blues, beat the Pies, enjoy the footy.